This is you know I, quite interesting. It's early in the morning. The kids are still sleeping, and this is my opportunity to read some stuff. And I'm not saying that this is good necessarily for everyone, or even recommended, since we're already a little bit stressed out, even if we are not fully aware of it. Um, but there's some stuff that I would like to discuss. I've just had the opportunity to read a couple of things. One is Economist from this week, which I'm very glad finally I was able to change the address from the States to my current address here in France, and it made it. Very glad about that. And anyway, interesting stuff there. And the other thing that I'm reading is Le Monde. And this is from last week, an interview to Jürgen Habermas, the German philosopher. And it's quite interesting too. And I'm just comparing, make me think. I just read a couple of things. And the first one, well, actually, first, all of them are related to my most personal situation, which is as an educator in higher education in the States and here in France too, and the future of, well, so many things. Well, a couple of thoughts. The first one is this is most likely not the end of the world. Let me emphasize most likely. And that means that, of course, everything will go back to some sort of normal. It will not be the normal that we have known, but there will be some normality there. But what is that going to look like? That's a different question. I just like Habermas, for instance, talking about Europe. I'm talking about actually something that it was mentioned to me by a good friend. Uh, does the current situation means that some governments and the way we do politics is going to be a science-based decision-making policy? When you look at what the United States is doing and Mr. Trump and so on, well, the answer to that question is simply no, at least for the time being, which is, in my personal opinion, too, dangerous, very dangerous. And I know that many of my friends and family in the States feel the same way. To what extent are we? I mean, I guess that what Habermas is saying is in this article in Le Monde is that we're seeing as spectators how our leaders, elected leaders in the case of democracies, of course, their decision-making powers, their latitude is limited by, in a great extent, by the experts and scientists, epidemiologists, and telling them, what to do, where or not wear masks, lockdown or not lockdown, comparing like the decisions made in Sweden, Denmark, or here in France and the States and so on, right? Is this a trend that is going to continue? I mean, I always thought that was for the most part the case, but it may be in cases like this where the collective health is at stake. It's not the same case in economics, of course, with different models, and ideology, even in healthcare, has and will always have a tremendous weight. Anyway, I mean, that's an interesting question. Is this going to happen or not? And another thing that he asked too is something I've been asking myself here, and I guess many Europeans. Right now, we have had a few instances, a few opportunities in Europe to show the reason behind the very existence of the European Union. Right now, countries in the south, as is often the case, Italy, Spain, and so on, they have suffered disproportionately more than countries in the north. And as it turns out, of course, Italy and Spain, they have had over the last decade, bad luck with unemployment and economically speaking, of course, there's a higher debt rate and so on compared to countries like Germany. But then the question, obviously, and it's the same question that Habermas asked, and others as well, is, well, what is the reason behind? I mean, why do we have even the European Union if it's not to act as a bloc and help those country members, national members that need it the most, like Italy and Spain in this case, like to show the solidarity principle behind the European Union at this very moment. Is it just an economic model? Of course, this is the big question behind the European Union. Is the European Union supposed to be just an economic conglomerate, an economic bloc, or is actually a collective society project, right? And even to a great extent, a cultural project. Anyway, those kind of questions actually will have a tremendous impact in politics in the years to come and even months to come. And the extreme right, the extreme left definitely will, I wouldn't use the word benefit, but there will be some consequences, right? Borders, Schengen is dismantled for the time being. Borders are closed. They will remain closed for months to come. It's a first. And yeah, the nature of this pandemic too, right? It doesn't respect borders, but at the same time, of course, controlling the influx of foreign citizens, I guess, it was one of the first measures taken by governments. Rightly so in most cases, actually, but it has a political content too, particularly when I'm thinking about the extreme right movements too, nativist movements in the States represented by Donald Trump and many of his supporters. This idea that, we keep our country safe if we close the borders. Well, now we actually have done that, and it would be used rightly or wrongly as an argument. Um, yeah, anyway. And economists, just to finish this, is making me think a lot about the future of higher education in the States and the economy in general, which is the next thing. We're just beginning to really beginning to deal with the pandemic, and there's a long way to go, as we already know. Here in France, just a couple of days ago, President Macron just announced he gave a very clear date, which of course is a date that will be reviewed in the future as well. But May 11th will be. So in other words, we have a month ahead of us where we know, citizen France, that the lockdown will continue for another 4 weeks. That gives a certain amount of certainty, I guess, but also poses a lot of questions about the economic future of France and, well, the rest of the world. Unemployment rates are growing, higher rate, and they continue to grow. The economy is very impacted, and this this situation is really truly unprecedented. What the Economist is presented, which is something that most of you already have observed, and you know this, is just like our habits as consumers, but also businesses are reacting, and higher education as well, and so on. Organizations reacted to the new situation, which means most of us, some of us, those who have the opportunity to and the chance to be able to continue work from home, well, we're doing so, and we're learning a new set of skills, I guess. Struggling in some cases, also discovering new opportunities as well. And this is definitely going to have a long-term impact in our lives and in the economy as well. There's some winners and losers, as is always the case. I just read that Amazon, not surprisingly, I certainly collaborate with that too. I have used Amazon much more than before the pandemic. Has grown, and we have made Mr. Bezos and stockholders a little bit wealthier in the last few weeks, and we will continue to do so. And retailers, other retailers are suffering, and we continue to suffer. So again, winners and losers. When it comes to higher education too, it's interesting. The model in the United States is it's extremely expensive. I talk in other posts about this, and no surprise to anyone. Tuition has increased dramatically over the course of the last decades, and it continues to do so. But now we have reached this crisis. Numbers, for the most part, according to an article in the New York Times too that I just read this morning, will go down. I read that about 15% is the estimate. 15% is an average. So some schools, some universities will be affected more than others. Of course, that depends on many geographical factors, and which means also socioeconomic composition of students and families within those universities and so on. And universities in the States are pretty much hotels. Some very nice hotels actually, with great facilities, and that's one of the factors that entice students to come in, and their families, of course, to come in and sign up for those. It's not just the academic quality of the programs of the universities, but all the services that you have to offer. Mental health care also. I'm not saying that it's all bad, but certainly those facilities, particularly the physical facilities, workout rooms and gyms and so on, will not be used, and labs and so on will not be used, are not being used right now. And I have always, and I still do, believe that coming fall, beginning September, classes were either be delayed, the starting classes will be delayed maybe October, November, or there may be actually there will be some sort of blended option for students where students will be offered an online version and a face-to-face version, or both somehow. And then again, considering the drop in students returning and starting college next fall, well, that's something to be seen yet. There's a lot of strategic issues too. The SAT has been canceled or is being reviewed. There will be an online version, or maybe universities already starting deciding that they are not going to require entry exams as they have historically done. All those things will have an impact. Would that change the way we do things? Absolutely, absolutely. I think that this is. This is not I don't think a dramatic opinion. This is not just for the short term, and behaviors and procedures and the way we even. We do things, and we will continue to do things in the future. Will definitely be impacted greatly in the long term by the changes that we are seeing in our lives, businesses, institutions, us. Anyway, I guess that it's time to continue reading. Thank you for tuning in, and leave your comments. Talk to you soon, and stay safe.